Nigeria at this moment has a plethora of needs and wants. Unfortunately, the means of bringing fulfillment to them continues to diminish owing to local and global circumstances. As the nation prepares for a new civilian administration, what should then constitute key priorities on the way to repositioning for economic development? We're going to look at the likely scenarios in greater detail as we usher in our first guest, Senator Ayo Arise, a corporate titan, entrepreneur, and former federal lawmaker, as well as a member of Nigeria's ruling political party, the All Progressives Congress. Good morning, sir. Distinguished Senator, good to have you join us today.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for having me once again.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. Well, I mean, it's been more than a month after the keenly contested presidential election, as you're aware, and it's less than 2 months to inauguration. A lot of people might think that things are still easy, but we know that there's a president-elect who is preparing to take the reins of power. What are your projections towards May 29 and beyond, and what do you think should be the priority as APC prepares to hand over power from one APC president to another APC president?
Well, thank you very much. I believe Nigeria has done very well. We've gone through an election, and we've been able to sustain our democracy, to this point. And I believe the president-elect is quite prepared to take over the reign of leadership of this country. We all agree that he's been working towards this for quite a very long time. And his antecedents in Lagos is at least one of the major reasons why Nigerians trust him and why they voted for him in this last election. I think right now, looking at the preparation right now, I think he's taking a little rest, after such a very laborious exercise of campaigning and all that. The work of governance is not strange to him, and I believe the major issues that need to be tackled immediately is very much aware of it. Our problem of power. I believe he's going to face this headlong, and I think in a very short time there will be tangible results to show Nigerians that we actually voted correctly. Once we're able to resolve power, a number of economic issues will begin to start coming up in terms of resolution and in terms of development, in terms of employment of the youth, in terms of even preparation and care for the elderly as well. And of course, we look at so many areas that we've been having issues in this country. The president-elect has mentioned credit as a primary area of focus, which will enable and empower those who do not have the wherewithal to buy a house with cash or buy a car with cash. That is, by cash means paying the whole money down, which is our culture. And of course, he says that will be one of the areas he's going to be looking at very quickly, in which case people can go to either banks or housing or mortgage banks for houses, and of course, credit and consumer banks, that is your regular banking system and the microfinancial system, whereby you can take a loan based on your salary or whatever your earning is. And of course, because the easiest way to determine what you make is through paid employment. And rather than be looking or trying to steal money to buy a house where you think you are running out of time, it will be easier for you to buy a house based on your income, and you pay over maybe 15, 20, 30 years. For example, the mortgage system, the average in the US is 30 years. you go in with less than 5% deposit, sometimes 10, and if you don't have a good credit, you might be doing a little bit close to 15% of the cost of the property you are buying. The same thing goes for the car industries. When you go in, you walk into a car lot, they will actually be begging you to finance. I mean, it's even more difficult for you to carry your cash and say you want to buy a car in a car lot. You'll be subjected to so many questions because they assume where you getting the money from. Everybody makes income that it's known. It's based on your salary, or if you are privately employed, whatever you declare to be your annual income, and this can be reflected in amount of tax you are paid, during the year. And they do the credit evaluation. Of course, there are so many credit companies that handles that, looks at how reliable the character is, how he has behaved in the past in terms of paying, what he owed. And of course, they look at your record of maybe car ownership, you'll be paying monthly, have you met up with it? If it's your mortgage, the same thing applies. So there are companies that will spring up to be able to handle those credits. They call them credit bureaus, probably about 3 or 4 major ones in the US. It's not, even the banks, they do their own estimate and evaluation of how this person, or how creditworthy he is, and that will determine the kind of money that you'll be given and the kind of interest rate that you're going to get. So these are some of the things that the president-elect has spoken about initially before going on this short vacation, I would assume. And of course, by the time you have that credit boost, the need for car manufacturing plants in the country will become very necessary. And the need for builders, for architects, for quantity surveyors, the valuers and all that, you see that the economy will begin to come up in a way never before imagined. And the pressure on politics that everybody believes the only way you can make money is by joining politics. That would begin to relax a little bit in our country. I have no doubt that based on the president-elect's American experience, not only the education, but the experience, he's going to bring a lot of value, to this, to the polity and to the management of our economy in the country.
Well, all right. You've touched on several aspects, including power and strengthening our credit system. But still on agenda setting for the president-elect, I would like to touch on corruption. Last week, a coalition of 25 pan-Yoruba groups, I believe they're called the Odua Nationalist Coalition, they kicked against the recent call for the sack of EFCC Chairman Abdulrasheed Bawa. They've said that, the call to sack him will derail his successes in the anti-corruption campaign. And they've asked Tinubu to focus on the fight against corruption being one of the greatest challenges facing the country. Now, what do you make of the call for Abdulrasheed Bawa's sack? And do you think removing him at this time will weaken the organization or perhaps fuel political interference in the affairs of the anti-corruption agency?
I'm not very familiar with that call for his sack. I don't see the need for it now, unless there are other things that is not in the public domain. I believe so far he's done quite reasonably well based on the kind of system that we run in the country. I don't think sacking him would bring any major change to what we have. I think our greatest problem is our inability to bring culprits, to book quickly and firmly. When you begin to dilly-dally here and there, everybody believes that she can get away with murder in the country. When you talk about corruption, it's not a problem that one person is going to be able to resolve. We continue to improve on many areas of our life in Nigeria. Corruption is a major one, and I believe with incentives, to ensure that people are able to afford 3 square meals. You're able to have a roof over your head. You're able to drive a vehicle when you need one. You're able to pay school fees for your children. I mean, the needs of individuals are almost basic. But there are some people who are maybe naturally greedy, so they don't ever get satisfied. It depends. It depends regardless of how much money they have. But to look at the head of that borough, it must be found wanting in an area that is established, or that is established that is very corrupt, or that has not been doing his work, or has been partial, or is hurting the country as a whole. I don't think there is any need for sacking him, unless when the new government comes in, if his term expires, they have the option of renewing it or not renewing it. But luckily, it's a succession of government. So I have not seen, I don't see any reason at this time to remove Bauer. That's my own personal opinion. But the people in government are up there. They have access to more information and better information than some of us who are just members of the party. And so if they have such information, then that might be, if it's genuine and legitimate enough, they can make a move for it, but there are procedures for removal, because it was actually screened by the Senate, and it needs to be sacked through the Senate. I think the procedures are pretty, or the Act stipulates the procedure. So that's the very much that I can say about the removal or not of Bauer. But in terms of corruption, yes, I believe the president-elect understands that this is a major problem that can either make or mar his administration as well. There must be a limit to some social problems. If you let them continue to expand and expand, it will consume the nation. And the idea of even building power or building a credit system, you will now, rather than see success based on your vision, if you allow corruption to continue to fester, it will actually consume whatever idea you are bringing to the table. So a lot of effort needs to be put in place through our new president to ensure that corruption is actually tackled frontally. And our incumbent president was voted in because of his record in terms of corruption. But you look at it that this is such a multi-hydra problem, that how much success did he achieve? He tried his best, improved on the previous record, but do we still think that we're where we're supposed to be? So it's a work in progress. We need to continue to tackle, either through whistleblowers and so many other methods that can be introduced to ensure that corruption is reduced in our society. It exists everywhere, but because people know they'll be brought to book in the advanced countries, that is why it's not so much of a major problem. But if the judiciary can sit up, and even with the executive arm, to ensure they're not influencing the EFCC boss somehow, to say, oh, this is my friend, let him go. I think once we're able to stop that, we can begin to see some progress. And I'm sure the president-elect wants to make a mark. He wants to leave a good name, because I don't think there's any other thing he's looking for. I'm not sure he's looking for money, and I'm not sure, I know certainly he will not be looking for money. But he wants to make a name. So we have trust that he will do well as the president of the country.
All right, Senator Arishe, I mean, I would like you to maybe say a few more words on the credentials of the president-elect as far as anti-corruption is concerned. You said that this was an area where he performed well while he was governor of Lagos State. And I'm wondering if you are certain about what you're saying in that regard, and are there instances, are there policies that you are able to point at that stand him out as an anti-corruption czar in the same way that President Buhari is looked at when it comes to anti-corruption? And then secondly, I would like you to project into the type of cabinet that you will expect that the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should have, given the fact that each state of the federation mandatorily will have to produce a minister. If he expands the cabinet beyond the 36 that the Constitution recommends, he can add additional 6, at his pleasure. What sort of cabinet will you expect him to have? What sort of individuals will you be looking forward to? Will they be former governors? Will they be party members? Will they be those who worked with him in Lagos State? And one of the things that is said about him is the fact that he has the knack to attract good and resourceful hands. So going to the federal level now, what kind of individuals will you be expecting that he will have? And are you looking forward to play a role yourself?
Well, thank you very much. Let me start from your last question, whether I'm looking forward to playing a role. First, I'm from Ekiti, and there are so many giants from Ekiti who have worked very hard. The president, you have our immediate past governor, and incidentally we are from the same local government, so if I want a role, certainly it has to be after I get something. Then you look at the likes of Dayo Adeyeye, who went through the leather breadth of the Southwest with his swagger initiative. You look at the likes of Dele Alake, that has worked with the president-elect over many years. And there are so many factors, so many people. But it's actually dependent on Mr. President, whatever he wants to do. If he calls me to come and work with him, not necessarily as a minister or in any capacity that he thinks I'll be able to add value to his government, I certainly would welcome such. So, but I'm not really looking forward based on, because I'm a very realistic and very practical person, so the expectations are not really in the sky there. But if he calls me to come and work, I'll be more than happy to contribute my bit, to the growth and development of our country. Now, on the issue of his antecedents in Lagos, before I even get there, who are the people who expect him to bring on board? I'm sure we all know, and everybody will attest to the fact that he, in terms of appointment into his cabinet in Lagos State, he looked for the best hands at that material point in time. And he was able to have a mix that became more or less the precedent in governance in terms of how the governors appointed their cabinets. He went beyond Lagos State. He had representatives from Ogun as commissioner. And of course, our incumbent VP was in his cabinet. That he had somebody from Osun, who is now the current Minister of Interior, and who was governor. Again, he was governor in Osun. We had people, even from Ekiti, the likes of Dele Alake, the likes of Yemi Bamidele, who were in his cabinet. And we have a number of people, then my good friend, a fantastic individual, Ben Akabweze, who was MD of a bank before he became the Commissioner for Budget for Lagos State, and is now the current and incumbent DG DG budget for the Federation. And I can continue to mention names and names. Of course, you will see his first chief of staff before Fashola came. That was Lai Mohammed, who is now in the cabinet of our president, Buhari. So we can keep on mentioning names. He went out. He looked for the best chance that could help him. I know he's not going to deviate much from that practice. He's going to get the best people from wherever they come from in Nigeria. Those who will work and ensure that we have a change in terms of our strategy and dynamics towards moving this country forward. So I have no question in my mind that his cabinet will be rich and will be full of not necessarily professionals alone, because there is no way we can expect him now to select a cabinet where there are so many governors that worked for him and they have now left their seat. Those who are unable to make it to the Senate, which is their natural retirement place now, will certainly be looking forward to serving as a cabinet minister. So I have a feeling that we have a mixture. The party will have the input, the president will have his input, and at the end of the day, I think those who will work for Nigeria are the ones that we're looking for to ensure that, look, if you have been able to do something tangible and you know what development entails, you know the pains of those who are those who are unemployed in society, and we're doing or we're having policies to ensure that there is a difference in governance. And that's all that I really see that our president-elect should be bringing to the table. So having said that, I would now look at the issue of corruption in terms of what he did. Now, we said, your question, you alluded to the fact that, yes, we voted for Buhari based on his anti-corruption stance. We were able to look at that from the Operation Y, or, yeah, it must be Y, when he came in with Idiagbo in those days. And we were able to see him from that perspective. The fact that people were queuing on the line, when we needed service, if you had to buy a ticket, you stay on the line. People were very, very obedient. And we felt that, okay, this man who can bring back the same discipline, forgetting the fact that the democratic setting and operational or the modus operandi is actually different from, that is, between the military and the civilian government. So your performance on using decrees is totally handicapped, is even non-existent, because you have the Human Rights Commission everywhere. We have freedom of speech, which you have to respect. There are so many things that will certainly hold back a person who says, oh, I want to enforce this. Now, by example, we can begin to learn. So we're expecting good example. And the only reason why I said he understands the dangers of corruption. When Tinubu became governor in Lagos State, we started seeing things like, okay, the erratic power that we're used to must stop. He approached Aaron, and they brought a badge. Of course, that was scuttled at the federal level, because we are not really practicing federalism as it should be. Otherwise, there is no way why a state should not be allowed to come up with initiatives that will improve on the lifestyle of their people. So that was one of the biggest surprises that I could not understand, when a person was trying to do good for his state and for his people, and even for the nation, because Lagos is landlord to most Nigerians. So let's put it as a micro nation. That is what Lagos State is. Now, you look at that. That is not a product of corruption. Now, you move away from there. You saw the faith that was all over Lagos. We were seeing corpses on the road. I would be wondering, using your car to actually, because I was staying in Lagos. And you now look at it that this man came up with a policy that ensured that Lagos started getting cleaned up. And those people were working, 24/7. And you now look at it and say, okay, he as governor, when it was actually the policies that all of them sat down, those executive members, the policies that they came up with in terms of developmental plan for Lagos State, in terms of where we should be in another 10 years, where we should be in 20 years, where we should be in 25 years, planning for growth and planning for development. That is the effect we are seeing in Lagos today. It's not the issue of corruption. I mean, when a lot of people have thrown all that is possible at the governor-elect because he has money. At least everybody knows that he has money. And the question is, he left government since 2007, which is how many years ago? So we begin to forget that once you are smart upstairs, you can do a lot of things to make money legitimately. Unless you say once you are governor, then you must become a poor person, or you must remain poor. Those ones who become very poor is because they never knew any other business than politics. They do not know how to actually turn 10 naira to 20 naira unless they dip their hands to the government wallet. So, having said that much, I don't know about corruption. I do not have access, to such information. But I think for a person who was able to get on the business of government, determine that this is what is best for my people, and determine that, look, if we put down these plans, that so and so time, we should begin to have rail lines, we should begin to have airports, additional airports. It's not rocket science to know that when you land in Ikeja and you drive almost 2-3 hours to go to, even 4 hours to go to the Lekki corridor, you don't need to be told that you need to expand your roads. We are not where we are supposed to be, not even in Lagos. Even those who came after Tinubu, they've been following those master plans, and they are doing extremely well. The current governor, Sanwo-Olu, I believe within the time he spent there, in the 4 years, we've seen tremendous improvement in infrastructure. And you can see the focus that we are developing. And that is all we need to get at the federal level to ensure that every person in this country can see that there is development. Our roads are so deplorable. It's unbelievable. And now everybody flies, those who can afford it. And if you now say somebody who is afraid to travel by road from here, to the east, and he has an opportunity to steal, or he wants to travel from here to Lagos, and he has an opportunity to steal because there are no good roads. Ordinarily, they would have driven. But they are afraid of kidnappers. So some of these things are things that we have to be looking at in a holistic manner and ensure that Nigeria takes control. We don't allow insecurity to dictate our lives. We must ensure that we provide security for every Nigerian and ensure that we're able to go about our businesses without fear and without being totally subjected to our local area of operation. The more you go out, the more your horizon improves. And I look at it that when you look at Tinubu, we cannot say that is the only thing. It's not even part of it. Part of what he did in Lagos, he accommodated other ethnic nationalities, and he's been able to move forward, even as senator. We are forgetting that fact. as a senator, you have access to about 103 other senators in the country from different parts of the country. So building that bridge, understanding relationship, and developing, holding tight to your friends is a major reason why Tinubu is the president-elect today.
All right. Well, as we begin to wrap up this conversation, earlier when we talked about corruption, you said that the issue we are facing here in Nigeria is not corruption, but the inability to enforce laws or bring the culprits to book. I'd like to know your thoughts briefly on the post-election litigation going on right now. If we look at the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi's litigation, which seems to be dominating the media space owing to some of the grounds for which he filed his litigation against the outcome of the presidential results. Now, the highlight being Bola Ahmed Tinubu's alleged drug case, for which he was reported to have forfeited huge sums of money. Now, what do you make of that litigation? And are you saying that you are not confident at this point that justice will prevail in that proceeding?
Well, certainly justice will prevail because even those of us who didn't go to law school, we understand that the law itself is whatever the Supreme Court says it is. They are the ones to interpret a law. It's not by the textual content. When you talk about the drafting of that clause in our Constitution that says that you must win in 36 states, 25%, and the FCT. When you read it in text, what that text is saying, is saying that, in addition to that same text, when you put in 36 states and must win the federal capital, that is a different meaning. When you use and or you use including, it depends on the drafters of the Constitution. But everywhere in the world, those that we copied our Constitution from, we understand that Supreme Court judgment is not based on textual. It's based on the reality, of the situation. Most of the constitutions, maybe the last constitution of the U.S. was like in 1889 thereabout, started from 1770 thereabout. So you now look at it that how do they interpret? Even when you look at the Al Gore George Bush case, the Supreme Court came and said you must stop counting. And they stopped counting because they were still counting Florida. And there was a problem, and Florida was supposed to be the key between Al Gore winning the election and George Bush, because they were looking at the electoral colleges. And you now look at it that the Supreme Court judge will sit down, or the judges will look at it and say, okay, after, even if you win 36 states, if you do not win FCT, that you will not be president. That can never be the interpretation. It's not, there is nobody. You can assume that people, when they are typing, they might, and don't forget that English, and when you go to the law court, on the same issue, somebody will be arguing one way, the other will be arguing the other way. And at the end of the day, you have an arbiter, that is the Supreme Court. They will look at it. What is the intention of the people that drafted this Constitution? Their intention could not be and can never be that you must win FCT. How is that possible? When already we all knew, if not for the fact that, we all knew that, okay, we're looking for 25 states. It's now 26 for you to win before the 12th to 3rd issue would raise its head again. Yeah. And of course, if you look at that, there is no, I don't think they are going to go too far on that. The lawyers are there. That's what they're getting paid for.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So,
I had touched on the issue,
Yes.
which was the highlight, which I mentioned, Bola Ahmed Tinubu's alleged drug case. That was what I wanted you to touch on briefly, if you can, before
okay.
we
Thank you
wrap up.
very much. Thank you very much. I am resident in the US, so I understand the system very well. If Tinubu had committed a crime in America and he had been indicted, it would be in the public domain. When you say somebody forfeited money, yes, of course, you could forfeit money. There is Oyema, the owner of Airpeace. He has his case in the US. Does it mean that he's been indicted? He's not been indicted. But they are holding his money. And, at the end of the day, if he goes to court and they now negotiate and he says, okay, you are forfeiting this much, does that mean that he's been indicted? They will put it there that this man has been indicted. There are so many cases that you can look at. They are no-brainers. For me, I do not think that the people studied exactly what was on their hand, what they were looking against. So it's just like you are just fishing for something. And there's no relevance in that. If Ashwaju had been an indicted criminal in America, it would be in the public domain. And there is nothing for, and America doesn't cover anybody. They just indicted Trump, their former president. So there is nothing that is not here that you go and turn and change the books. No, it's not Nigeria. So let's be focused on, I really don't think that they have any case on that matter.
Well, thank you.
Yes, you said.
Very much, Senator Arishe, for joining us on the morning show this morning.